Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Home Improvement. No, this was not an 80s film series. It's very much a show of the 90s, from 91 to 98. Yeah, this is 8 seasons. It is, of course, a comedy starring Tim Allen and Patricia Richardson. I don't know why I said Heaton, because that's a different, somewhat similar show. I don't know. Patricia Richardson is the wife, and of course we have the three sons, played by Taryn and Noah Smith, Zachary Ty Bryant, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas. For the ladies out there, and of course Richard Karn as his assistant on the TV show. Within a TV show, Tim Allen plays Tim Taylor, and he has a TV show about tools, Tool Time. I think it's Tool Time. But it's all about home improvement, about crafting things, and so he's a bit of a celebrity. But at home, he's still pretty much a husband and dad, and that's kind of the gist of it. It's kind of these two worlds bleeding together, and it's creating some conflict at times, or a means for resolution. So Tim is, a big shot at work and on the show, a laughing audience, an audience that seems to be laughing way too much at the things he does. But of course, there's also a live studio audience for this show, so it might be the same audience. I don't know. It's the 90s. So what we have here is just Tim kind of being Tim Allen in a sense, I think. He's very manly and always making the orangutan kind of grunting caveman sound just to prove his masculinity. And in a way he compensates for, I'm guessing, what he thinks is a lack of masculinity. He always has to sort of power up everything that's around him, whether it's on the show or at home. In the very first episode, I only watched one episode. Of course, I've seen this show back in the 90s here and there. It was not like a show that I watched all the time, but I know I've seen it here and there. It might have had something to do with Pamela Anderson, even though she only appears in 30 episodes and appears briefly. And I think she has like one or two words that she says in the pilot episode, and she's even credited as Pamela Denise Anderson. She's a brand new kid on the block here. This is early in her career, before she became one of the most famous, beautiful people in the world. So, yeah. Of course, so you get to have this comedy that works on two different levels. You get to have him working with Richard Karn, his assistant. Why I can't remember his character's name. Al, just Al, Richard Karn. It's weird that I know the actor's name better than I know the character's name. And it's not like I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff since then, but hey, hopefully he's getting money off of those residual checks from this just merely existing. Hopefully he had that kind of deal, especially for such a long-running show. Anyway, so you get the comedy of him just doing scripted things on his show, and of course going off script in a way that has the more uptight Al sort of trying to rein him in. And at home, it reflects the same thing, where the wife, Jill, decides, oh, my dishwasher isn't working right. You got to be careful with that. You got to clean the plate before you put it in there, because it won't get everything clean. And in order to do it, he's like, oh, I can just put a special engine in here and sort of repower it so that it can clean the dishes, just like the blender can puree a brick. That kind of thing. And of course, things tend to usually always go wrong. And yeah, lots of slapsticky kind of explosions and stuff flying everywhere kind of situations. So yeah, it makes for good comedy. And of course, his interaction with his sons, where he tries to bring them into helping him out, so he doesn't take all the blame, I think, just becomes a whole thing. It's fairly formulaic in the way it's structured, and it works because it was honestly probably one of the biggest shows of the 90s. I mean, right along with Seinfeld, which was very much the opposite of it. So yeah, it's fun, it's funny at times. But yeah, yeah. It's and one of the things I've only realized here since I've looked at the credits is that Wilson, his neighbor, who we tend to always think of him as the guy behind the fence, who we see him only, hey, I'm going to give you advice. He's kind of like an elder mentor to Tim to help him reflect on his feelings or what he thinks he's doing, tries to, help him out. And he's a little bit weird, but also one of the weirdest parts about this is I didn't realize his character's name is Wilson Jr., which means he's the second in a series of Wilsons. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of Wilsons. But one of the things I noticed here in the first episode, knowing that he tends to, in future episodes, hide behind a fence, he also, there's even scenes I'm seeing here where he actually comes over to the house and sits on the couch, but he's wearing a face mask, like there's a pandemic on or something, but he's wearing a face mask when he's on the couch talking to Jill. It's kind of strange. But yeah, that became kind of a recurring bit, but in this pilot episode, you get to see pretty much of his face. It's not a bit yet. So yeah, while you do see him mostly behind the fence, you get to see him pretty much fully from the side. You know what the guy looks like. It doesn't become a thing until later in the series. Kind of funny. So yeah, even if you just watch the first episode, you get to kind of get the gist of what goes on in this house primarily. In this episode, the pilot episode, Jill is trying to get a job, and she wants a life outside the house. And Tim finds out before she does that she didn't get the job. Therein also, beyond him messing with the dishwasher, ends up being a learning experience, let's just say, for Tim. And again, all of this is mostly about Tim learning something. Even in future episodes, say when the boys have to deal with something at school or with family or whatever, with each other, the idea is girls, it's still a learning lesson for Tim. And every episode, something gets reflected upon that helps somebody grow in some way. It's whether it's Wilson helping him understand something a little bit better, or realize it's really kind of ironic considering Tim's politics and everything else. But I won't go into any of that. But the idea is that it's very about a man trying to shore up his masculinity by overdoing it. Like, not shutting up about it, like just compensating. Kind of strange, but it makes for fun. Fun comedy. So if I remember this growing up, and it's something you haven't seen before, well, Disney has 8 seasons of it. If you want to go through all of it, it's over 200 episodes. I think it's like 203 some episodes. That's a lot of TV watching. Not a whole lot of shows these days ever make it that far. So yeah, it's probably one of the longer running shows period on Disney Plus. So might be worth checking out just to relive the 90s and all those hairstyles and fashions as well. And Pamela Anderson. Let's pick tomorrow's episode. All right. 67. Oh, and by the way, when you see Pamela Anderson in this episode, I didn't freeze frame or anything, but you barely recognize her. They do make a bit of a, they do make a bit of a joke about her, that she is referenced in an argument between Tim and Jill. But they really, just like Wilson behind the wall, they probably don't really lean into Pam's presence, Lisa's presence, and her looks until later on in the series. She eventually does leave later on after the first few seasons, but yeah, because she became big, partially because of the show, partially because she was in Playboy. But we're going to be watching another episode in a series of specials that we just saw like last week. Was it last week? It feels like not too long ago. But we're going to go visit another My Music Story. This time, I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Disney My Music Story, Sukimaswitch. So yeah, I think that's the last one we have left of the Japanese, very Japanese music-centered My Music Story series of episodes. So Disney's My Music Story, Sukimaswitch, is what we're watching next on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.